The fire blew up, and they said, well, they're not gonna, the company goes, why would I take that? I get, $50 million for damages. I'm moving out. Yeah. Why would I rebuild there when the mill was barely making breaking through the I'll go invest this money in another mill. And, that kind of makes sense, but you go look through the range, you look at like, look at Illinois. Right, 20-something years ago, that mill closed. They were selling, one of my dad's friends was one of the assistant managers there, so he managed an apartment, yeah. And he said, he tried to hang on as long as he could, and he said, he would drive down the street, he goes, there were 2-3 houses not for sale on his street, like that was it. He said, street after street after street, the whole town was for sale. And he said, by the time it was over, by the time, 4 or 5 years after it was over, he said, you could go buy, these houses were a quarter of what they were, when the mill was running. A quarter, 25%. He said, you could go buy 3 or 4 houses for 50, 60, 70,000 apiece. It was crazy. And now you look at it though, and then, well, they have the power infrastructure, they have the road infrastructure, the town crashed, right? They're flat broke, they got no money, no roads, no anything. Now but they had the houses, so these companies are going, hey, I can go stick a little business there, buy cheap housing, buy cheap power. The mills had all the power infrastructure, so if you want to hook into it, it's really easy.
Yeah.
They were drawing power, they were using power, but now that's where they have that, they call it biofuel, but I think it's more of a wood chip burning facility.
Yeah.
It's to make power, but they had all the power infrastructure, why wouldn't you do that? So that's, so those towns, you look at it now and you go, wow, that's a lot. It's not where it was with the mill there, but it's back to almost a viable town again. Yeah,
I've been up there.
yeah, I mean, Jay is gonna crumble with the Madison plant down. I mean, there's nothing but savvy left in me. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, the Madison plant, they've got a outfit in there that, it's not obviously how good it is scale. That, I mean, the Denver has, not an event, but it's an event. I think you give it to
Yeah.
But it's only, they're really.
But they have a lot fewer employees, they're paying a lot less. And there's a lot of negotiating, and that's because they had the power, they had the infrastructure to go and put some kind of facility in there.
Barely.
Yeah, we worked with a guy down in Woodland down there.
You still hit that illegal.
It's unbelievable down there. You go down to that Woodland plant, there's a 4-story building that had 300 or 400 people working there. Yeah, they had 12 people that work at that facility. But that one machine can produce a trailer truck and toilet paper an hour.
Yeah.
Is that 52 over there?
No, I'm just around. It was just playing musical name tag. He just dropped it in different places.
I wanted to know where you
Throws me around every time.
Okay, well, here we go. I don't know.
My dog's up there, want to go with me? No.
My dogs always want to go with me.
Don't see. Send that out in the back.
Well, no, I just go back in the house and they follow me and I shut the door. Oh, really?
Oh, my God, did you?
Oh, I just go treat and I gotta go give you the crickets. They have.
Oh, yeah.
I got 2 labs and a little terrier. The labs are just so food motivated. If you say the word treat, they're coming. They're like, oh, yeah,
second, I
I'm
just had
sitting, I'm the best dog.
And
I'd like to see.
Yeah, oh, I love treat.
You ready? You there? Hello, can you hear me? Okay, don't move, I'm gonna give it to you, hang on.
Go.
Don't have to press it. 814-0734-3464.
Got anyone not doing that?
Oh, we can share one.
Oh, this thing, I think that's mine over there.
Oh,
Okay.
There is no password.
You can have that.
Okay.
Okay, all right.
Do it. There's no password, there's no password.
Thank you.
There's a wrong with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've been watching us stream? Yeah. Later. Okay. Bye.
I didn't realize I was so close to the building.
So it needs a password, there's no password.
Let's see what we think here.
You say you were journaling? Where are you?
I'm on Greenwood Lane. When there's 4 Greenwood. Okay, that's the last one on Greenwood Ave.
Oh, yeah.
I'm right on the corner of Greenwood Lane and Greenwood Ave. My house is actually on Greenwood Ave, but my address is Greenwood Lane.
Oh, I see. Oh, okay, I see.
Yeah. That's where we're in first. Yeah, and they have the road curving right. It doesn't curve right. It kind of curves left.
Oh, I see.
At the end.
So you're right.
I'm on that corner. Yeah. Yep.
I don't know where David is. You hear from him? I am, but no. I actually tried to call him once, twice at work, and he didn't pick up, so I didn't bother. Maybe he should have.
Oh, and you say that, yeah, there's
I keep talking. Hello, Mr. Leroy. Mark from the Code Enforcement Planning Board Office. Hi, tell me the meeting. I don't know if you remember. Yeah. Okay. Oh, yeah. I just said that. Yeah, there is. It's right on the plan board. Yeah, no, that's not invented anymore. It's an agenda. It's an agenda item on the planning board. I didn't bring an event. Because that's not the one that you want to use anymore, so. Exactly. So I legal noticed it, but I put the legal notice in the event, but this is the agenda item, didn't really legal notice this, because I wouldn't do. That doesn't make any sense, but. Miss Jess Cobb is here from the Dodge Board. The
Yeah, I think everything.
the what?
Okay.
Yeah, if it doesn't have a spell.
That's just funny how it never box.
Yeah. Well, it has a box. You can't read.
That's it.
Which is it's all
Like that, this point.
correct. And then I emailed no problem.
Right.
Everybody the email that you sent us. Very good. Right. Okay. Slow down. Oh, tell.
Which colors bother you?
Back.
One and
He didn't realize there was no meeting. Oh, a lot of them.
the first, I was gonna say, the 2 here probably look pretty similar. The blue may blend a little.
Well, there's the village and
How
the.
is it?
Limited commercial.
General residential.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, those.
Does everybody have it?
And then, I don't know if they made a copy.
I can make one.
Because
You're gonna put a change
Oh, that makes it even harder.
they turned the overlay, yeah, that's no fun there.
Yeah, that should just be yellow because you should just go to the more restrictive
Yeah,
and shoreland's gonna be
Is that
more
it?
restricted than whatever other zone.
Yeah, that's not gonna make up.
So it should just be shoreland.
so when the overlay,
I know they try to make it, so that you understand what's underneath, but. like,
Take your
we figured
HDMI
that-
cable and put it.
Yeah.
If you want, and it'll go up from the.
that's what I thought, and that's something that- shoreline.
It's not shoreland, well, again, shoreland's gonna be the override.
Mr. Lee's on his way.
Okay.
Who wants a paper copy? I don't know if anybody's like old fashioned like me.
Do we have extras?
I can make them.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'll take one.
I printed one.
I rented one. too.
okay, so
I
two.
just bought a second.
What
You need
about,
one?
yeah, he does. What about,
David,
Lee?
I'll
Yeah.
print him one, because he seems to be.
You want, you've got the one with the changes, you want one without changes.
That might be easier to read.
That's what I was thinking, because when you make the changes on there, it's strictly.
Yeah, the comment.
I'll do
Yeah,
that.
that's a good point.
Yeah.
I just have the one you just emailed,
Oh.
The bigger the better.
right? Isn't that the one?
Two-sided or one-sided?
It's single sided, perfect. Yeah, I'm not, I can't stand.
Me, no, I can't.
I can't ever.
Make me one, I have to worry about it more. It's not enough. First of all, I don't have. Mark, you think that good?
Yeah, I pretty much. Kind of. Read through those there.
I did not, I made it to page 5.
Skimmed it somewhat, but. I never read through it.
You skimmed it?
I mostly read it.
Most of, I mean, there was parts where I annotated. I think Anthony answered most of my questions. But yeah, there was stuff that,
I just read the text, I didn't pay attention to the questions.
that's fine,
I figured whatever it is, we'll be talking about it.
yeah. There's really no way to turn that off. I can't hear.
It's very
Me too. I can't either.
Yeah.
Yeah, we turned the thing and it says to turn it, we turned it, it didn't work.
Huh,
Over the back.
right?
That's one.
They have one manual.
Huh?
It's probably on manual.
Probably it stopped working and it got hot in here, so they didn't trigger it or turn it on.
That's very well.
We can go find the breaker. There's always an off switch someplace.
Yeah,
That may not be good though. I don't know what else might screw up.
It could be the only reason it's on.
It could be. They come in and it's 100 degrees in here tomorrow. Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, I bet they broke it on. But if they just turned it on, they bypass that entirely.
And then just do a whole new release system.
They should. I think they should. Oh, they did.
Oh.
Well, I was gonna say, then they probably disconnected. But I would have thought they would have changed that. I mean, that is a tiny intake for this guy's room. Like they must not be using the other one. Their output. Gotta be an output. To be that high,
You would think, I wouldn't.
yeah. But that can't be the right size. This is size space. I mean, I guess you got brick walls, so you're kind of limited, but. Yeah. This is woefully undersized. Well, you need a little less brick wall, I think.
Yeah,
Because that's gonna be a challenge for anybody. Yeah. And I'm guessing that you can see the structural beams that there's not a lot of insulation up there. So that will not be a fun place to run me down there. Just my guess.
You think, you might be right.
I wonder.
Wait, guaranteed teams PVC. So if you're getting a lot of AC golf. Oh, really? I told that I, yeah. Said it, you know, you get a lot of calls like it's busted, or you get calls like it's leaking or it's not working. Or every day install, oh, a lot of installs. I said it that I installed that I don't. But you don't service other. What brand do you use? People I know I don't. Yeah. They're all public. There's all we should. Okay.
Yeah, but I'm welcome to that brilliant.
You wanted one or?
No, I thought one was for David.
Okay.
Lee. I was trying to find you to see if you have a stapler, but I can manage. Separate it.
Do we have anyone in on Zoom?
We what?
Do we have anyone in on Zoom?
Not yet. Not yet.
Yeah,
Jamie said she's gonna do it.
Yeah, she can't get on. She said she couldn't get on.
I'll spin you on.
I don't know why.
but I was wondering if that racket is maybe we could put it with the small company.
I don't know how that works with the meeting now.
Right.
It has to be recorded. You have to move all that stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It must be with the-
I don't know which.
That's right. we're gonna
I don't
record
know.
it. Oh, really happy to hear.
It is.
With what? Yeah, I think there's gotta be a zero there or something that's missing on all of them. I think it's just off the market. Well, I think it's 20 or 21.
Yeah.
Well, no, it can't be because this is 17. Oh, it can't be.
Which page?
Well, all of them say like page 6 of 2. You're like, wait a minute, how does that work?
Page 1 of 2, page 2 of 2. and 3 of 2, et cetera, et cetera.
Oh, really? No.
All the way up to 17 of 2.
Oh, I wonder. So you have 17 pages though, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Huh,
17 of
it's just in
2.
the footer. It probably automatically did something.
yeah. It sounds like,
Well, those things when you set up the footage, so
Yeah, it's,
you can overlook that pretty easily.
well, it's easy to change too.
well, yeah, so it's all gonna get grouped together into one big document.
Oh, no,
anyways.
no, it's just being big.
No, but
That's
I
part of
do,
my
I do
job, yeah.
appreciate when people point things out. I'm not being defensive. I
Yeah.
forgot.
No, I don't, it's, This,
I'd say 20, wouldn't you?
Right?
That number.
I don't know, there's only 17 pages. And it's weird because the one I had didn't like that.
That they didn't really send.
Yeah,
And look.
sometimes. Which is not German for Lexington either, in fact.
What is it?
Something like, to your health or wish you health or something like that. I get exactly. Something to do with your health.
When I stayed on vacation, I got reacclimated to the holiday or whatever here.
it feels like
As
it's
soon
worse
as I
than-
got back, oh, my head was,
Oh my God.
So it wasn't bad when you went away?
well, I have allergies.
Yeah.
And they get bad and they've gotten better. And then they were good on vacation, came back and like within a couple of hours of being back home,
Huh.
I've been all stuff up again.
I get worse usually if I go somewhere, if I go to like New York or if I go down to Virginia, my allergies kill me. And like they're okay here, they're manageable. I just take a routine allergy med, but if I go away, it's like nothing can stop it. It's really weird.
And before they send you to the parent.
I can't take allergy meds, I'm allergic to antihistamines.
Oh,
Oh, God.
that's
It's
big.
really counterintuitive.
Yeah, I was like, how do you have allergies? But
Allergic, yeah. Allergic to
Those
allergies.
shouldn't go together.
There we go.
They don't, but it's true.
Uh,
The doctor said it's not possible.
Right, exactly. It's like, wait a minute, if I'm allergic to antihistamines, that means I don't have histamine. So how do I have allergies? How can I have a histamine reaction? I don't have it.
Apparently it's synthetic. Antihistamine.
Some kind of a loophole there.
Yeah. If I take them, I'll break out the hives and rashes for days
Really?
and get like 2 doses and,
And it doesn't matter what you take.
well, I haven't taken every gram because it's.
They're pretty much
You
formulated.
think that allergies are bad until you have that.
Yeah, they didn't know it's
Glad
bad.
you have the allergy.
Oh, give me the allergies back.
Use the time.
It looks like you started it on Jim's paperwork. I didn't open it up.
I did,
Yeah.
and, uh, the thing with that. Like, I guess I can see what they need to do, although I don't understand every detail of what may need to make it readable.
Yeah.
But I could see basically how it's gonna table, things like that. But I don't know, the physical layout for the
Did I,
sighted view,
how are you?
well, kind of needs confused, needs a little adjustment, not undo what you did.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it was together. Set up the.
What's that?
I didn't realize it was together. Table margins, a little better.
And you can do that, it's just you gotta be really careful. Like what, some of the functions that you use it to make it look pretty, because I've done that. And then my 508 compliance officer goes, no, I can't do that. Like, well, I do that, it looks pretty.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, no, you have to do it, there's a way you have to do it, is the challenge. So you really need somebody that knows how to run 508 compliance, and they actually know what they want it to look like. And that's really hard to find.
Well, that's it, and, you
So you
know,
can say, change these things, but you can't, he won't be able to change all of those things.
Yeah.
As easy as you would, so.
right. Yeah, so there's some things that need to work to make it more readable for.
Who's ever using it,
99% of our ability
right?
visually.
Yeah.
Without losing what he did, and I'm like, I don't know that I could do it. Plus, I did find a nice project for it, but I didn't go through the whole thing. Because I saw a few minor mistakes that we could correct.
That's what I was.
With anybody.
Right,
doing a document,
right.
that would do that.
But that was always my concern, is that it's not a direct copy, right? So there's going to be a chance of transcription errors.
Yeah.
And that all has to be checked, because
Yeah.
we don't want to inadvertently make something that was 45 feet, be 4.5 feet.
Right,
And now you're like, whoops,
yeah,
and now it says it in the ordinance, and you're like, I
Oh,
guess
yeah.
you gotta follow that.
yeah, now, for example, there was one that was, going to like, maybe and it went to half the roadway. There was one where the title got truncated and started going section, so now
Oh,
roadways and driveways, and now it was F roads and G
something
and
else.
driveways,
Oh,
or something like that. I mean, this is sort of,
Yeah,
piece of
yeah.
it, but it needs to be fixed.
Right, because it screws up all the lettering and
Because,
everything.
we've got all lettering.
Yeah.
Because everything else is lettered
Right,
based on that.
Yeah.
So everything.
yeah. It's hard, because if you use the right function, we use a lot of templates, and if you use the template, you can have it auto create the index.
Yeah.
So that way, if you create those extra ones, it'll just auto create the index. And it'll automatically fix that stuff for you, even if it's wrong, it'll fix it in terms of,
Yeah.
you won't have to redo it anytime you say you want to add a section or remove a section. It'll automatically do it.
That's
But you
what we're
have-
doing, it automatically created now,
Right,
all designated.
right, but still, you're gonna have to, I looked at it in person, I don't know, a couple of months ago, and it didn't have the ability to do an auto index. I tried to run it, it couldn't, so I said, that, yeah, it doesn't, unless you have to set it up like when you start the document. And tell it that, hey, all the letter Fs are gonna be major elements, make those part of this index. And then you're basically hyperlinking it, and once you do it once, it'll just keep adding. And it'll just auto create the whole thing.
Yeah.
So, but you just have to start it that way, but you have to know how to start it that way. I'm not saying I know how to start it that way, I have my public people give me a copy.
Yeah.
Start it that way. Like, give me a template that I can add to, okay. Now it works.
I think it,
Hey, you found the finger.
Oh, wow, what a difference.
Now it sounds like I'm yelling.
yes, you are.
You got it.
Yep.
Oh,
Nice.
Just gotta remember to
I
turn.
died before the meeting ends, it's number 25.
Yeah, I was gonna say, just turn the breaker back on.
I will.
Yeah.
Okay. David,
I told Jamie earlier when she suggested that she zoom in, because she has the flu. I said not to worry, there was gonna be.
Oh, and she didn't straighten you out on that?
Well, no, but more importantly, apparently we've changed the approach. Heretofore, there's always just a mention of meetings, be they town council, planning board,
Yeah.
what name you on the right-hand side of the web page.
Yeah,
Apparently, we don't do that anymore.
I found it
Or the
somewhere.
last one got missed, I
I
don't
can't
know.
remember where.
I usually wait for Mark to send an agenda and then I'm like, yep, we
Yeah,
got a
me
meeting.
too.
Okay, but see, we didn't have an agenda
Well, but he
either.
sent out this and I was like, okay, that was only a couple hours ago, but he sent this out and said, oh, we're gonna discuss this tonight. I'm like, aha, we have a meeting.
Yeah,
Is this a special meeting?
No.
Or is one of your
No.
regularly?
Yeah, it's regularly scheduled every 2 weeks, the second and fourth
Okay.
Tuesday, the Wednesday, but
Yeah.
we didn't have any cases.
If,
So,
if needed,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Right,
yeah. If we don't have any cases, normally we wouldn't have a meeting.
right. I think you did a special meeting to go over the maps, right? Is
Yeah.
that, okay, because we were trying to determine which one should be a special meeting and I couldn't remember if it was this one or the
Yeah.
map one.
Yeah. That was,
So I emailed Jamie and asked her, and she said, I don't know. She said, I'll ask somebody else.
no, Mark, I think said that Anthony felt that wasn't gonna go there.
What,
So I
on
said
the
to Mark,
website?
tell Anthony, thanks for sharing.
oh, he said that's not going to be there on the page anymore. Okay,
Okay.
that's why the audience is slim too. Well, there's nobody online
Is this
either.
what you're talking about, the upcoming events?
Yes.
Yeah.
Heretofore,
Are the town
Planning
meetings
boards.
going too?
no, I bet you this,
Oh.
I think
So-
that was,
You guys are on here for August 23rd.
which reassured me even more
More than we did
strongly
now.
that we aren't here tonight,
Yeah,
Jessica.
it doesn't make, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah,
It's kind of nice just to have that on the homepage, so.
it's only been that way for half a decade. Anyway, I guess we'll wait another minute for Mark. Jessica, welcome.
Thank you.
What are we doing with you this evening?
So I was gonna go over the draft of the existing land use chapter. with
Did,
you all.
did anybody else have a chance to read it?
I'm
Since
almost
we've
done.
only had it
I read most, of
for
it. I'm missing
a
the
little bit.
I'm
last
almost done.
third page, 3 pages left.
I pretty much went through it, kind of skimmed a little place, but I read a good deal of it.
I got my notes.
Is our back better, sir?
No, but it's getting there. I can sit up and stand now.
Okay.
Well, that's a start.
Didn't have to have any ambulance drop you off.
They couldn't pick me up. That was ugly.
Oh, my God.
That was really bad, trying to get off the floor.
Oh, my
Ugh.
poor thing.
Yep. Very strong pain medication.
Yeah,
Even then it hurt.
yeah.
Well, rumor has it that we could have a town planner on board.
And
In a month.
yes, it was candidate number 3 and
Oh, you got the memo? I didn't get that.
there's a meeting on the first Monday of every month. It's actually announced still on the homepage.
Oh,
Most of
really?
our
Oh,
meetings are apparently now and again.
I didn't check.
No, on Monday, Anthony mentioned that, actually, right now, it sounds like all the open slots have been filled, including the planner spot.
Oh, is that the town council meeting?
Yes.
I got to sit on.
Oh,
that
yeah.
one, too.
Yeah,
and-
Mark said the administrative assistant started this week.
Monday. Yeah, and Anthony claimed that he already had her. It is a her, by the way, Jessica.
Mhm.
Working on, she's already working. But the planner is not official, so We don't know that it's a her necessarily. Maybe it is, but, the job has been offered, but it has not been formally accepted.
Was that as of Monday?
Yes.
Based on what Mark said, it sounds like that changed, didn't it?
That's the way I understood it.
Changed. did
I think,
she-
I believe, I could be wrong, I thought he said she accepted.
Okay.
Yeah, that's exactly what I got from that conversation too.
Then that's something that evolved in the last day or two.
Yeah, I knew she was, they made the offer time last week, I believe.
Yeah.
And I know she had a few other interviews she was doing.
Oh, no, it says.
Mark.
What's that?
Don't break your pencil.
We may have a planner, I'm told.
We do.
Okay, so she did accept.
We will accept it, yeah.
Okay. But yeah, it's like a month away. Is what I also understood. All right, let's do it.
Do we have to call it to order or anything, or I don't know how you.
I call
Today.
her.
It's August 9th. It's a planning board meeting starting a few minutes late, like 37. And we're here to get some other from Ms. Jessica.
Alrighty. So at the top of the page, you can see the vision statement. This was something that the comp plan committee drafted. It has not been approved by it hasn't been, I don't think it's been seen by the town council. It's in a state of flux. So, but the structure of it is in a state of flux, but the elements are not going to change. Preserving the rural character, prosperous economy, healthy municipal services, those sort of things are not going to change. And I'm mentioning that because that's what this entire chapter is basically written around, as well as the future land use, which I'll be going over with you all sometime soon. So the next paragraphs after that just kind of basically explain the importance of the vision statement, the purpose, and that this chapter in the future land use have to be written in such a way that they reflect these beliefs of the town. Introduction, pretty simple. I think we can skip those unless anybody really wants to go through each and every one. Okay. The settlement pattern,
Can I ask a question?
yeah, of course.
Can I ask a question? I'm a little confused here. When it says, trends that will not be welcome, such as loss of open space, loss of productive farmland. I thought we were gonna reduce the size for building. That seems to,
Reduce what?
the size for building lot.
In certain areas, it's,
We had talked
well,
about.
that's proposed. I don't think that there's anything like,
One seems to contradict the other a bit.
in certain areas. So if you look on the map, I think it's not necessarily proposed in the more rural
Correct.
areas. That's predominantly in areas that are already built up and or served by public water and sewer. I think,
Yeah, as it goes on, it talks about the sewer and that stuff. So that's, it locks in at that point.
it will, yes.
Okay.
So that's the important thing with the Growth Management Act that was started in, I think it was like the mid-80s. The towns in Maine were growing so fast that there was just like sprawl, and it really put a strain on municipal services such as road plowing, school buses, things like that. And so the state came up with the Growth Management Act that kind of, I guess, required towns to designate certain areas for growth, like to encourage and direct growth into certain areas that are served by municipal services and kind of preserve the farmland and the natural resources and things like that. So to give you a little bit of background, that's what this whole plan in general is written around. And the existing land use kind of outlines what's currently going on in town. So. Does that kind of clear it up? Okay.
It does, thank you.
The settlement patterns are, again, that's kind of self-explanatory. That will be covered more in depth in the historical resources chapter, but if anybody has questions, we can certainly go through that. Characteristics of Winthrop's land talks about abundant natural resources, threats to natural resources, the importance of the Cavasy watershed districts, and the upper narrows and the public water drinking sources. I'm not trying to breeze through this. I think the things that I really need your input on start with the residential land uses. So based on, in part, the last plan and what I've learned about your town, the residential land uses are most concentrated in the village, where there's smaller lot sizes. You guys implemented the iWork system in summer of 2022. There hasn't been a huge amount of housing construction, predominantly on the lake shores.
Was that again?
There hasn't been a lot of housing construction, and where there has been is mostly on the lake shores. Is that about accurate? Okay.
There's a few,
But overall, there hasn't been a
In
large
general, right?
influx of residential period, right? I mean, there's,
steady, but it's not so crazy, and probably average in houses a year.
well, and when you consider the population, of the town is projected to be staffed.
Or decline. But again, those population projections are based on trends that are mostly pre-COVID, so it's kind of questionable how viable those projections are. And projections, I mean, you can't really,
Well, the state of Maine has been
right,
staffed forever, right?
yes,
And-
yeah,
And we don't have burgeoning economic
right,
industry or anything that would potentially kick
no,
housing
but I
as
think-
a secondary effect.
right, but I think, COVID kind of threw a monkey wrench in a lot of that. I think that's changed some things.
Yeah.
With the amount of people moving to certain areas, maybe not this far north, but,
Well, on the coast for sure.
yeah. Yeah. But,
I mean, they are moving here because they're running out of real estate in the coast, so.
yeah, that's what I've been told too, is that they're kind of coming up
migrating this
here.
way.
Yeah,
But Brunswick, for example, was relatively sleepy, but that's almost an outgrowth of Portland, South Portland.
right,
So that is.
Well, and Southern Maine, I mean, York County's numbers are crazy,
Yes.
you know, especially coastal York County, their numbers are nuts. I mean, they're seeing double-digit growth in every single town. So over the last 2 years, so.
I think at some point it's gonna come this way.
Well, I think it's gonna force it, you know,
Yeah.
we've
Yes.
seen, you know, the problem is we're not developing, we're not building. There's not enough houses. That's why there's no inventory, there's nothing on the market.
Right,
So it's just not enough properties for them to move to.
yes,
They go, I'd move there, but there's no houses there.
right,
And I hear that. I hear that a lot.
Yes, exactly. People wanna come to this area and they can't find a house.
right,
So they go, I gotta go someplace else.
I mean, there's people in this town that, for whatever reason, are looking for new housing. Ticket, I mean, and rent right now is incredible. I cannot believe what
I know, it's,
rent costs.
so,
$1,600 a month, nothing included.
It's like for a one bedroom. It's crazy. Yeah,
There's, that's a house payment,
that's more than a house.
right?
Well, somebody's trying to help that situation.
But you gotta have houses to buy.
Right.
I mean.
Oh, I know,
you know, it's.
But a mortgage is 7%, I think.
Yeah.
6%.
Yeah, they just refund.
3 to 7, how many months?
Yeah, not long.
so, yeah.
Yeah.
So housing hasn't been a huge thing in the most recent years. And for construction of multifamily, high density housing, you really need public water and sewer.
They're not growing.
And they're not growing for a couple of reasons.
Yeah.
And then it talks about lot size requirements for those types of development. And more or less where they are predominantly. And then we're on to subdivisions, if everybody's okay with that section. So for the subdivisions, I think it's important, this middle paragraph here, that people understand what subdivisions are. I was writing one of these one time and they're like, no, there's that subdivision off some street. It turned out it didn't fit the state subdivision definition. So I'm just talking about subdivisions that fit the state subdivision definition. And there hasn't, in the last probably 10 years, there really hasn't been any created in town. In fact, the ones that have been created still have vacant lots.
So Mountain View is the one that's,
Adjacent to
new
the
one?
school, right? Is it adjacent to the school?
no, Mountain View, is that the one? Mountain View is. That was,
I think Pat Ladd got me that information.
Mountain View was the Teen Challenge one, I believe.
Yeah, I can't keep track of the name.
I don't remember the name of that.
I think that's what.
You're talking about comms that we
That was
just,
right across the other side of the street, that's.
okay, but
That was only like 9 or 10 lots.
Right.
They're talking
That
about
was- that's-
15 lot. Mountain View.
Mountain View is,
That Teen Challenge one
10.
was 9 or 10 or something like that.
11th thing, but
Maybe 11.
that was
Yeah,
just,
Mountain View is the most recent one, that's
well, then, in that
Wow.
one, wasn't that fully empty?
still empty.
Still,
It's still empty, yeah, because you got the same problem Tom's got. On the other side of the road, there's no utilities there.
Right, but they're paying to add them, so it's just gonna be.
Wow.
Sounded like they were the subdivision developers were gonna,
They're gonna pay for it, yeah.
Bring it
he's
in
gonna
and
pay
then-
for it, yeah.
Well, yeah, Tom and the other guy were trying to get together and
They were gonna pay for it.
figure out what they're
that's
gonna do
really
with
the
that.
biggest and only way you're gonna really start selling. them.
so it's not even a question of public water and sewer, it's a question of power, electricity,
Right.
and there's no way in hell.
Is that for several subdivisions?
Two
Two of them, yeah. But
of them.
there's,
Each other.
there's one on each side of the road.
Sturtevant Hill Road,
Sturtevant Hill.
yeah, right near the border of Reedfield.
Correct.
Actually, yeah, it runs right to.
Yeah,
Right to the Greenfield border.
yeah, and I drove the road and I couldn't believe it, no, the power does not connect.
No,
I was like, what?
But considering utilities generally, power is one of the cheaper.
Yeah.
It is, oh yeah,
Oh,
a
yeah.
lot cheaper than water, for sure,
water or sewer, yeah.
yeah. well,
So-
sewer's most, sure.
The Mountain View one is completely empty. What about the one across the street? So they're both.
The other one's
empty if
very,
there's no
the other one
power.
is month old.
Yeah, we just signed that one.
Well, we have another one we did a year ago that was like 3 or 5 lots.
Five,
Was
I
it
think.
5? Okay,
Great.
is that, yeah.
Oh, that's out on
Or was
the,
3?
But I think that's. I'm not sure, he might have sold it and that person isn't gonna develop it as a subdivision.
Oh,
oh, really?
okay,
I think.
So the message, Jessica, is even when we create a subdivision,
They don't get built.
or we lose it,
Right.
because that's where one of the solars went, right?
that's right, that's right.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So we're going backwards on subdivisions, just so you know.
That was a pretty big one, that one that went to the solar.
Oh, gosh, yes.
Yeah,
It
because
was
that
like
was
30 something, right?
30 or 40 lots, or something,
And that's, yeah, I mean,
which I don't think they ever developed,
No, they didn't.
any of it.
Agreed.
they conveyed off some of it to some other people
The good news is there's interest, for developers potentially to help support some housing. But for whatever the reason,
and, I can tell you what the reason is. Price.
price too expensive.
1,100 square foot ranch is 400,000, where it used to be 110, 150,000.
All right, so now you're talking building, you're not talking the land per se.
Well, I don't know what you're getting for these, I don't know what the, listing price on.
They can't afford to build a house. Okay. We have minimal multi. Family,
I saw that when I did the housing chapter.
and I don't know of any interest of late.
Yeah, we've got a handful of duplexes out there, but that's
Again, that's Tom, but by multi, I think of usually 4 or more.
Yeah, three or more is multi-way.
Right,
Yeah.
those would be the
That's
ones on the
my
backside of Hannaford, right off Main Street.
Right.
Those would be, that's
Yep.
the only two. Is there any others?
Well, you get the one that was a nursing home that has
Oh.
nothing in common with that at all.
well, that thing never went either.
Well, it's available.
You
Okay.
buy it.
Yeah, that's been brought to my attention several times. I can't remember, Anderson, is that one? I can't remember the name of it. Yeah,
I actually just had an inquiry on trying to get into like a teen challenge, but a substance abuse recovery home.
so industrial,
Planning board, planning board.
no longer the planner.
Oh,
So industrial and commercial development. Aside from the business park on Winata Drive,
Which somebody's talked about putting solar in there.
oh, really? That's
Oh,
sweet. So that still has available, yeah, it says 3 lots are available. I think I got that from Pat Loud too. There's still available land for future development for industrial and commercial. Basically is what it's saying.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is dependent on the accessibility for water and sewer connections.
That runs by there. That business. I
But
know
there's
one.
some areas on here, I don't think. I have my utilities map too. I think there's some areas that aren't served, isn't there? But,
Okay. In Winthrop?
yeah, that's what, I mean,
There's a
no, I
lot
mean,
more not than is.
I mean specifically in industrial and commercial areas. Yeah, they're not served.
Does it go all the way out towards, Monmouth?
Yeah, it's Monmouth's sewer.
Oh, yeah, Monmouth, that actually ties in
The
the other.
pressure main comes from,
Okay,
Augusta, but it doesn't serve the whole length of it. Not all gravity. My understanding.
Yeah, it's, that's,
is there water out there?
So institutional, is everybody good with the commercial, industrial and commercial section?
the. YMCA, section costs. That's some beautiful land right there.
We're just bringing up a delicate subject. Should this section maybe discuss somewhat the redevelopment of the former egg farm,
Former what?
Turkey Lane?
I'm not familiar with that.
Everyone open that can yet?
No, well,
Checking.
yes and no, I mean,
So
it's out
if
there.
it's something that is existing today, then
Vacant, vacant.
if it's a future thing, we can talk about it in the future land use plan. But if it's a hot political thing, you may wanna
Well,
throw me a
there's some
bone, give me some
aspects of
background.
that whole complex that are hot political things, but as far as reuse of the buildings, I don't know, I didn't get much complaint on that,
Well, the steel manufacturer.
that the steel manufacturer wants to go.
So there's a section of the future land use plan that is basically a table with policies and strategies. You could, based on what you're telling me, we could put a policy in there, evaluate vacant properties throughout town for, and I'm just throwing, this is just off the top of my head, for repurposing and reconstruction. And then you can, that could be a policy and a strategy that's attached to that, you can get a little bit more specific, but it's not directive. It's not like the town will do this. It's more like investigate options for repurposing the Dorothy Egg Farm.
Yeah, because there, I don't know how many 100,000 square feet of building are out there. Former poultry farm.
Huh.
And there's, at this point, as far as I know, one relatively small business employing what, half a dozen people or something like that?
He was hoping to grow, but yeah,
Yeah,
he was only having like 6 or something.
yeah, but even with Max, he's like talking to dozen, 15 people out there. And
Will you remember that, or should I write it down to discuss it with the future land use? I can write it down if you want.
Well, I'm wondering how much we should push something like that,
It's not pushing, it's just a suggestion.
suggest it.
Well, it's more like, hey, this is a possible strategy that the town may want to consider.
Right, but one thing, it's not in the industrial commercial zone, it's in the rural zone. But on the other hand, it's large existing buildings that certainly
Right.
have.
No services, though. No public services. Can't be out there, right, Mark?
No, yeah,
But I mean, you got the rest of the mill and those other dilapidated buildings in downtown, that all have public water.
I was gonna ask about that.
And, you know, those are huge. I know the Freckles, they rent out the one floor for the ball, with my wife's in it, so I know that I'm there all the time, but there's 3 more floors that are completely empty.
That is mentioned.
And there's a whole other building next to it that's empty, and there's a whole building behind it that's empty.
yeah, there's a good deal of open.
And we know the landlord, and that's why it's empty, but I mean, I think, it's right downtown, it's developable space, it's not going anywhere, the building's not falling down.
Yeah, no, I definitely plan on going through all of that
Yeah,
stuff with you. So can you show me where the egg farm is, just so I have like some sort of perspective?
It was industrial building. I said you could convert them off board apartments.
Is it adjacent to one of the brother is?
Right there.
Actually, to read.
So it's not like a resource protection area
I know.
that we're.
Rural zoning.
That's why they're charging. I don't think they're.
Oh, that huge lot. Wow. Cool.
yeah, it's right up, just beyond Jacobs, so right up to.
That's what I think.
Boone's Trail Lane, yeah, that's a big, it's a big area.
Now, that was purchased, what, about a year ago? By a gentleman who owns how many acres? 400?
It's quite a bit, I don't know.
Or-
Here in Winthrop?
The old Dorothy Egg Farm property specifically.
Oh,
Yeah, I
And,
think that's 300 plus, consider both sides of the.
okay,
Yeah,
I thought the controversial side was 3 all by itself, and then maybe 100 on the other, so I was thinking it was 4 or 5.
well, which one's controversial?
Everything in Dorothy,
Yeah.
Shouldn't be, but it is.
Should we, Jessica, include, as Greg was talking about the buildings, the
I have-
local buildings
I
in the
have-
village?
I have some of that. That wouldn't go in this.
Okay,
That would be the future land use plan, which I will be going over with you guys. I'm not sure when we're doing that.
how much of the old Roland building is being utilized, Mark?
Downtown,
On the hill,
By the fire station.
all but one end cap.
so it's mostly utilized.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I thought that one was pretty well.
What about that god awful property kind of in the gully?
I must be trying to figure out where.
It's been vacant so long, I don't even know what it was. You're at Charlie Chevrolet,
Yeah.
and if you peel the right in order to come up on 41 and whatever, it's at the very beginning of that turnoff, that on the right-hand side, well below. I assume the tracks are right there.
All of the old ironworks. yeah.
Oh, the ironworks. Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Yes, the
that's-
ironworks.
Can you guys
Sandlin owns that,
kind of like
Sandlin Precast.
keep track of this stuff? Somehow, like, cause this is stuff,
Should we do an inventory of,
or just think of ideas like what you've been doing, cause that's, up until now, I've kind of solely been working with, the comp plan committee, so it's really helpful to get other perspectives as well,
Well, we clearly have a few properties that,
that could be repurposed.
well, at the very least, their original purpose has left us.
Right.
Yeah, there's several hundred acres. Turkey land, right? Yeah. I wanna look, see how many acres I've added, I mean,
or even parts of
So-
the building, by Paris Farmers is somewhat underutilized, I think.
I was gonna say that, so
Yeah.
there's
Huge
multiple
building,
unused
There are-
and or underutilized buildings.
Well, but sadly, in many cases, they're just flat out right this second, empty buildings.
Yeah.
And
That is-
at this point, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, I don't know. I mean,
It's good that you've got the capacity, but, and then there are differences, you know, the downtown area is gonna have access to water and sewer. Being in the village and everything, but then you're not gonna have that necessarily like the egg farm and
Right,
probably, I don't know about the old steel plant, I gotta think that's probably.
I don't
not
think
up
so.
there, yeah. Cause it would be like the only building over there.
it's 13 acres, it's multiple buildings, a mobile home on the road. And then there's one, there was 3 buildings, but I know at least one of them's collapsed.
Yeah, the others
Alright.
probably aren't far behind it.
Well,
Right.
we'll go through all that with the future land use. We'll probably have to meet more than once to go through the future land use because that chapter's kind of, I don't want to say the primary focus, but it's a really important piece of this plan that kind of like guides the town in the future. So,
that's where you develop all the pink balloons, right?
yeah. So I'll try to incorporate what you guys have talked about and I'll share this back with Mark and Anthony and I'm sure they'll distribute it for everybody's reading and approval. The institutional and service sector talks about the largest employers for progressive distributors, AMI,
Dave's Appliance.
Dave's Appliance.
Yep.
Am I missing that?
I don't see it there.
What is that?
Dave's Appliance, and they do, heat pumps, they have they're probably the second or third largest employer in town.
I gotta think Hannaford's up there.
That's, isn't that AMI distributors?
No.
no.
The
Alternative
Hannaford grocery
manufacturing
Is
is,
Hannaford grocery
Yeah,
store?
the Hannaford grocery store.
We get the Progressive, which is actually, what I'm saying, it is.
aggressive distributor, yeah.
But now there's something else, yeah.
Yeah. I can't think of the name of their company. And then Dave's Appliance has a ton of employees.
Yeah, actually, they do, you're right.
Good to know. Utilities district supplies water and sewer connections throughout town, well, not in all of it. That's basically the gist of that. I'll have to incorporate those other things.
I want to say the 2010 comp plan suggested there could be expansion of the sewer and public water systems. But I think the reality today is that the cost of doing
It's prohibitive. It's not,
so,
Yeah.
so that should probably not be part of the future.
no. Well, I think it's more like explore options for funding for expansion or like enter into public-private partnerships. Did it say that in here? Like in this one section that we just talked about?
I'm kind of ignorant, I guess, but what's such a high cost of adding pipe? for
They have
water and so-
policies and stuff.
Well, maybe that needs to be. looked at.
Water's not nearly as hard as sewer.
What's that?
Water's not nearly as hard as sewer. I mean, water is a question of capacity because we take it between Monmouth and Augusta. Now, we could double the size of our storage tank in town, which would keep the pressure and give us adequate storage and supply. So that would solve part of the problem. But then you'd have to branch off your existing lines. You know, I think our public works department are kind of like, no more, but that's largely because they have 7 pump stations that are 60 years old. Because they service Memorial Drive, a lot of other very challenging places, and they did it to preserve the lake, which makes sense, but at an extreme cost. And the maintenance considering the number of houses there. So, you know, sewer's difficult to maintain. We have a lot of hills, a lot of valleys. Sewer needs a lot of pump stations, needs a lot of processing. Water, not so much.
Yeah,
So,
that's always under.
Water's,
pressure, so you don't-
yeah, it's,
You
I
don't
mean,
have to worry
there
about
there is challenges
Up
with
and down.
use and the size of the line, so you'd have to investigate where you could actually branch off without. You know, there's only so much water you can fit through a 3-inch water main,
Well,
right?
it's true. right?
So you can only have so many houses served, so many houses before you're at a point where you just can't maintain,
Yes.
can't manage it. So, you just gotta have those questions and I think their thought process of no more, they should really reconsider, especially for drinking water. Because, you know, now with all of the increases of contaminants in drinking water, do you know the new number? Maine, 72% of the wells in Maine, private wells, will have a contaminant over EPA limits. How about that? You go
Really?
drill a new well,
Well, if they stop lowering,
the standards, yes, you're right there. Right there, but they've also numbered a huge number of new detections. And their detection limits are much lower, so the minimum reporting limits has changed a lot too.
Yeah.
But just saying that, well, I mean, my wife is a realtor, she understands this, she dreads selling a house with a private well, because every time they do a water test, it's like $5,000 system. Every time.
I'm permitted, by the way.
For-
System. Water systems, water treatments.
Yeah, well, we did that arsenic study back about 10 years ago and found out that 30% of the reverse osmosis systems were installed they're installed incorrectly.
Backwards?
10 of them, 10% out of the 30, so a third of the ones were installed completely backwards. So they were drinking the composite tip part, so the arsenic was concentrated in center.
Oh,
So there's crazy stuff out there,
Oh, yeah.
the crazy stuff.
All right, so before we get,
that was a long
Yeah.
That was definitely, but definitely you want to think about, I mean, we should definitely, I think, adding public water if possible.
I think, well, so that's mentioned, what you're talking about is more in the public,
Okay, different section.
it's a different
but yeah,
section,
Okay.
yeah.
Jumping.
But there is questions I had for you guys, I think in part of this that's related to that, because like you said, the 2010 plan did mention expansion, that didn't happen, and I was kind of curious. I think one of the recommendations, I think, was based on that, and we'll get there. So for retail development patterns, it basically just kind of goes through those I don't know where they're located, that type of thing, that's not huge as far as like things I need input on. Unless anybody sees anything that's like glaringly needs revision.
We need an ice cream store. Ice cream.
There isn't one?
No, with all these lakes and summer things, it's nothing. I don't know how
That's
that.
exactly-
Manchester.
Well, that's exactly right. Everybody goes to Fielder's Choice, but.
And it's the line.
I don't think there's anybody that can compete with that guy.
Well, I know they tried there at the other side of town, down by the gas station. She tried, second time around, she tried ice cream last summer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for land use
We need ice cream.
trends, there hasn't been a lot of new development. Either commercial, industrial, residential in the last several years.
There was pre-COVID as well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
And there's a lot of space available, really.
right.
You know, downtown almost always has a couple buildings empty. And there's space available, like we just went through some spots. So
yeah.
if somebody wanted to, you know, reoccupy, that would be an option.
And most of it's been on a lot by lot basis. Based on our conversations from a while ago.
The retail chain and Hanford's the last one.
Well, Dunkin', right?
There's
Yeah.
fast food, I was gonna do that as fast food. But yeah, that's a lot from that level. The White Duck Inn, Tavern Hill repurposed existing structures, so they haven't really built them.
It sounds like there's been a lot of that.
Yeah.
But most of that will get covered in the local economy chapter. This is more like geared towards land use. And it sounds like those types of things are predominantly in already built up areas in the downtown area. And it sounds like a lot of them have,
Well, sometimes, yes, but not always. Who's the winery that's out on 135? Apple,
Oh, yeah, the cider.
and that literally was just a residential home. They got
Ah, cool.
repurposed into a business, and that has none of the downtown advantages. Has parking come up yet? I don't mean here, I mean in general for
Yes.
village,
yeah.
because I think that's the big bugaboo as far as I'm concerned.
Well, that's what I was gonna say, that the parking situation is pretty limited.
Well, I mean, the parking that they expanded down behind the hospital on weekends is nice. I mean, there's a lot of parking back there.
That'll be a secret though.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think, and then that facility's closed on the weekends. So I mean, you go there for, you know, the vault weekend, which is the breakfast thing. I mean, there's 250 people going into the vault at 8 o'clock in the morning, and they're all, you go look, that lot is full.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, that's where they all park, or a lot of them are, once the street's full.
Yeah,
That's more in the local economy and I think public facilities and services section that covers parking and all of that.
The vault, by the way, is what?
Only one weekend a month. I mean,
Okay, I just wanted, I point that out.
oh, I know. I'm just saying, a lot of the downtown is, I see a lot more people down there on weekends than I do during the week. So I don't know if the parking is maxed out. You know, usually I can find a street parking spot without too much of a problem.
From what I've heard, it's a matter of how far you wanna walk.
I guess if it's raining, there's a different story, yes.
Yeah,
we're in maintenance, we don't wanna walk, wanna park right next to the door.
That's right.
But I also think
City people walk, yeah.
with, there's nothing in the old phone building, right?
Now it's for sale again.
Okay,
Well, they rebuilt it, they redid the
the old,
inside.
Yeah, they did some renovation.
yeah, phone building.
Oh, telephone, oh,
I
yeah.
mean, it looks nice on the outside too.
Yeah,
But what I was gonna say is, if we had a fuller inventory of businesses down in the village,
It
then I
would be a
think
problem.
parking would be a royal
Yes.
pain in the butt.
yes. I
But
think
the
you're right.
fact that we're hit or miss
Oh.
in terms of
Yeah.
what's open.
Yep.
right.
Yeah, the medical facility though, during the week, I mean, there's a fair number of cars back there,
Yeah.
you know, but it's not usually full. But there's a fair number of cars out there.
Right.
So, but there's usually, like I said, I've yet to have a trouble finding a space. It's just not, you may have to walk from out back.
Yeah.
Because behind the old mill by the smokestack, there's parking there too, and a lot of people don't know that exists.
You can walk from your house.
I can, but. I
So,
don't, but I could. I'm still there.
Front door.
the census designated place, this is basically just saying that Winthrop has a census designated place, not every town in rural Maine does. Just a few facts. Like approximately 44% of the population lives in the census designated place. It ranks 75th for population density. It's kind of, it just.
Out of how many? 75th out of,
153,
oh, okay, so.
right in the middle.
Right in the-
Just about that,
Yeah, so land use regulations, this just talks about, well, you, the new planner, the new administrative assistant, the zoning ordinance, which when it was adopted, amended through. It goes over the highlights of the zoning ordinance. It says that the shoreline zoning is incorporated into it. It points out that the subdivision ordinance needs to be updated. And then it gets into, it's broken down into 10 zoning, the town's broken down into 10 zoning districts. And then it briefly goes through them. If you look at, like, for example, the limited commercial districts, like right under there, you see an asterisk next to medium and impact commercial use. Low,
and medium.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that asterisk is tied to, if you turn to the next page, the definitions. That definition section is really long, and I didn't think it was necessary to put the entire definition for low, medium, and high impact commercial uses in here. I think most people, when they have a basic idea, so I just wrote where it could be found in the zoning ordinance and put a link to the town's website where the ordinance could be
that
found.
sounds like a reasonable approach.
Thank you. And then this is one of the things, if you turn to the table on page 12, this is one of the things I wanted to make sure I had accurate. So one of my issues in writing this is that the 2010 plan did not spell out specifically what the growth areas were. In fact, it left the limited commercial district entirely out. But based on the 2010 map, it is considered a growth area. And it also said that only portions of the general residential district were growth area, although it does look like it covers the majority of it, well, all of it, and then some. So I just wanted to make sure that this looks good to you all. If my interpretation of the growth areas is correct on this. Also, when I was looking at this again, right before this meeting started, there's an asterisk after the general residential district, and it's hooked to one at the bottom that says this includes what was previously the limited residential district. That's from what changed from the old plan. I don't know that that's really necessary to put in there, because that's been like that for a while, right?
Since 19.
Oh, since 2019. So it's up to you if you want me to leave it in there or if it's really necessary.
We consolidated two.
Yeah, the
two
general
zones
and the,
together.
Yeah.
and the
It was
limited.
village.
That was
Village A,
general.
Village B.
Yeah.
To answer your question, I don't think it's necessary.
Okay,
Yeah, it's been that way for a while.
Yeah.
okay.
We may even
Oh, really?
reflect it in our maps a bit.
So are you, I'm not trying to rush anybody through. looking and reading.
We would probably prefer to see growth from, edge to edge. Is there any place that we,
Of the whole town,
well, that's my question to the group.
you can't really. That defeats the purpose. If this is asking you to designate it to certain areas that are already built up. To preserve natural resources and the rural character and stuff like that. To reduce the load on the municipal infrastructure.
Okay, with all that in mind. Let's start with residential. Does what you just said apply to residential?
It's, so the general residential district is included at least partially in the growth area, as far as what I can tell. Do you know if it's the entire general residential?
Say that again, I'm not sure, I guess I missed it part of that.
So the general residential districts in the 2010 plan, portions of it were considered growth area. I'm pretty sure that it's the whole thing. I don't know how you can do portions. That doesn't make sense to me. I don't know where the cutoff would be.
Where do you draw the line?
What are they-
Yeah.
Part of it.
I guess the definition of growth area, what are they thinking?
Because rural, right, is where housing has been of late.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, but
it's
that's not-
over individual.
That's not ideal. That kind of creates like sprawl.
But I mean, isn't this, I mean, it says it's current zoning districts. Why do we have to call those growth areas?
Because that's what it is right now.
State mandate.
Really?
That's what it is right now, yeah.
Okay.
There's a definition of growth area in here.
So,
No, that's fine.
basically, this is a,
It's just defining the different areas. It's weird that one title makes it sound like it, but I was like, wait a minute, this is the current zoning districts. That's all it is. So they just defined it as growth area versus rural area or.
Yeah, or
shoreline.
area that you want to
Growth
protect.
Areas. Okay.
Are there areas that aren't in the other
Wait
three
a minute.
categories?
So
I guess.
are they considering growth area to grow, or are they saying
If
growth
you,
area they
if
don't
you
want
have
it
like
to grow?
a multifamily housing.
Yeah.
Proposal before you. You want to you want to direct it to one of these designated growth areas. And not like way out here in one of these rural areas, because it's gonna need infrastructure that's just not available out here. It's gonna tax, if you had a huge multifamily development out here, it's gonna tax the road system, it's gonna tax all kinds of stuff. It's gonna put an unnecessary burden on the town.
I get it.
now
That's
we're not gonna suggest that we're prohibiting,
No, you're not prohibiting
but
it.
we're
You're
gonna
saying,
encourage growth.
and you really can't stop it.
Yeah,
There's no,
we don't know, yeah.
What
there's
you're
no,
saying is if you have 10 developers banging on your door saying, I want to build these multi-unit complexes, you're gonna direct them to
Yeah.
those areas.
yeah,
Since that hasn't happened, we're all like, what are you talking about?
The only,
Conversely, someone is gonna purchase
They're gonna buy what they buy and
land
decide
and
what
then
they,
come up with a plan.
right.
As
right.
opposed to saying, would the municipality prefer that we buy, well, either A, buy a separate parcel, or B, the one I bought already, do something differently with it? I mean,
Right,
those are the
There's-
two options.
And if you're coming in with industrial or commercial, you're gonna go in the industrial commercial district.
Right.
So
Yeah.
Right.
that's
Yeah.
just where you're gonna fit.
Well, yeah,
And
that's
there's-
gonna be a given. but-
There's not much that you can do to change somebody's mind if they choose to build something in the rural area. This is just,
Like a quarry, for example.
yeah, this is just the state parameters that you have to work with.
I got no problem. I
It's a
just put
state-
stupid state name. That's all I said. Now I understand it and we can move on.
Yeah,
That's all I
The
just
state
said.
also has to look at, I mean, so we designated as growth area, but there's no land to grow, for growth to happen, the land that's.
Well, that's something that I'll talk to you guys about with the future land use plan. So if your growth area is at capacity, where would you expand it to? Let's not get into that tonight, because,
No, but you
It's
can
not-
carve off part of your rural area and say, hey, if we extended water up
well,
there
like the Dorothy Egg Farm
and,
area.
and other resources, that could be a
That
growth
could-
area.
Yes, exactly.
You know, but if our
So-
public works says no growth, then you kind of like, okay,
Yeah, but something's gotta give
Yeah,
somewhere. They
yeah.
can't just unilaterally say,
Well, they
You
do.
know,
they have that.
but without getting like way off into the weeds,
Yeah, I
that's,
get it. though,
that's,
yeah.
Right.
that'll be the next thing that we discuss.
Well,
But-
village district, which is in the growth area, I think you had mentioned there that there's really very limited opportunity for growth there anyway, just
It's
because,
mostly pretty well built up.
because it's already built up.
Yeah, you have to take down something existing or reoccupy something that's vacant. That's your
Yeah.
option.
Right.
There's,
Right, yeah.
there's not undeveloped area there.
Right.
So I guess based on this, these 4 districts are what the town considers the growth area currently.
Here, they
So
don't fit
what-
the other titles, so to me, it's like, it's a stupid name, and I'm gonna leave it there.
Yeah.
I just, they don't fit in the other areas, so they gotta go someplace. They're
Well,
not rural, they're not shoreline, they're not industrial, so
yeah,
unless we
Well-
wanna make another title.
no, it doesn't
Other.
really,
Well, I guess it comes down to who's saying it. I mean, if the town wants to try to focus growth in these areas.
no,
for
this is
the-
like
for
what
the
it
appropriate-
was for the previous 10 years,
Yeah.
I guess, based on the 2010 plan. Yeah,
Oh, what is,
yeah, this is.
That was the vision 13 years ago.
Yes, this was the future land use,
okay, yeah.
previous future land use plan, 10, 12 years
It's
ago.
back to the future, so.
Yes.
back To the future.
So,
Go back, and that's what they were thinking.
so this gives you guys a
Makes
good
sense.
idea of, because I didn't know that these were mostly filled, so we'll definitely talk about that when we go over the next chapter.
Well, I think when we talk about growth in some of these areas, yeah, there's not a lot of space, but I mean, that's probably a good place for the
I mean,
multi-unit development,
Village Zone does have some space available.
or the,
That mill, that whole 4th floor of the mill is vacant, and that would be wonderful for
yeah,
senior living maybe, or even some, I was approached, I don't know where they're at with it, they're talking about it, but the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th floor,
Third and fourth floor.
no, I'm talking about subway building now.
Oh, okay, yeah.
2nd, 3rd, 4th. Putting 4 one-bedroom units on each floor.
Yeah.
And I said, you can, just show me where you have the parking, because
well, then
Can't use-
we're back to that problem.
you can't use on-street parking for that.
Yeah.
Because, in the wintertime, yeah. But he said double D, end to end, you could probably do it. I said, well, you got to.
Give it a try.
I mean, I'm okay with it, as long as you can prove that. Because I know they have some land out back. So the Comtel building, the gentleman that bought that also got an easement for the parking lot behind it somewhere for parking for that building. So that if something were to go in there, there's some parking available.
Yeah, there's a big paved area back there.
Yeah,
What's the concept of it?
in case it was living, you know what I mean, in case you wanted to put a parking.
Because there's a little issue called ADA, which is gonna weigh in.
I was
heavily
thinking
in a
that
lot
when you
of
mentioned
these-
it.
But I don't,
Housing.
I don't do a ADA, that's not, yeah, that'd be
That's
FMOs or.
Yeah,
They would do area free on that,
oh, there's a fire marshal.
but it's a sprinkler building, so. Big deal, I think there's an,
In the subway building, I think there is.
Yeah, I totally told him, that's definitely getting it, and then we'll move you out in, yeah, before you even come to the planning board, that's, yeah. Yeah. But
All right.
slow roll.
Okay.
The mill is more important than anything, so.
So then it talks about cluster residential development and it kind of defines it, page 13, based on what's in your zoning ordinance now.
You want to know that we're in the process of trying to change some of these things, or should we just?
No, I know you are.
Yeah,
I know
that's
you
what,
are.
yeah, we had talked.
This is
about that.
existing.
Okay, gotcha.
Because this is really a good allocation of resources, the one Madam Dawn. This is like,
Absolutely.
this is her,
Yes.
this is her.
Purview.
Dawn, I can't think of the last.
Uh,
She's the new planner.
Shaw?
Oh, okay.
Something common.
Yeah.
Definitely not like
Like-
Arsenal.
She, this is like her forte. It's-
Think, well, Arsenal's a
excited about
common
this.
name amongst us Franco-American folks.
But she will,
She's like dying to get into it based on what I.
she will be your new planning board person and I will not be, so I'm excited about that. Between her and Deb,
It's
they will,
almost like divorce.
I know, right?
between her and Deb, they'll be setting the agenda, they'll be doing all the case review on planning board items.
Yeah, so
I'm very excited.
So yes, I'm aware that it's changing, but this is, again, existing for the past 10 years. This is how this has been.
Yep.
And this is where the growth area is explained on the middle of page 13.
You see that word requires?
What?
Yeah.
Not 10, 13,
Oh,
13 years. 2010.
yeah. Maybe I should put that in a different spot.
I'm just beating my ass.
No. You're just excited about no longer being on the planning board.
Don't jinx it. Dawn, I will go down Aquabog and then I will bring you up here.
Emerson,
Emerson,
Yeah,
you looked it up.
good. I don't care.
I checked my email.
Yeah. Emerson. yeah, it's-
So in addition to,
We're supposed to be discouraging growth in non-growth areas. Did I read that correctly?
Well,
discouraging certain types of growth,
I stand by my original statement that we'll take growth anywhere.
Exactly.
But that probably shouldn't be in a plan.
should not be in a plan.
No, probably shouldn't be. There are some honest statements of that.
I'll see if I can reword that. I think I took it direct, yeah,
I think it would be more fair to say that there are areas where one would want to encourage growth.
Exactly. Don't say,
I'm not,
yeah, don't discourage it here, but just say encourage it in these other areas.
well, you can't do much, well, that's kind of like. Besides regulatory stuff, like you obviously aren't gonna do industrial in the rural area for the most part. And that's a discouragement. So that's more what it means.
Okay.
There's also non-regulatory measures, like the fact that all of the rural area doesn't have water and sewer. That's what you consider like a non-regulatory,
None of the world.
right,
Okay.
right. So that's a
I know.
non-regulatory
Take it back.
measure to discourage it.
None of it has sewer, some of it has water.
So that, I took that verbatim, I can,
You and I are in rural zone and we have water.
maybe it needs to be explained a bit more. Let me talk to Anthony about that and see what he thinks. So, yeah, there's, like I said, there's regulatory provisions that encourage growth in certain areas and discourage growth in other areas. And by discourage, it's not like, I mean, if somebody wants to pay to get water and sewer in a rural area, then,
We'll encourage that.
right, I mean, but it's not discouraged, like, I don't know. It's not discouraged necessarily in the terms that you're thinking. And like I touched on, the non-regulatory measures for encouraging growth in certain areas. like walkability, bike lanes. Although there isn't many, but that's like a consideration to create more bike lanes.
I don't know of any
There's one, you told me there's one.
bike lane.
Yeah, it's on one road. By some school. I don't know your town well enough to remember the roads.
If there's any, it would be on Highland Ave right here that I'm aware of. I don't, there's bike path, there's paths, but there's no, like, going down the road, bike lane.
Oh, you mean marked with a
Yeah.
little mini lane?
Oh, I thought
I
that's
don't
what-
think we have any of those.
Maybe it's a bike path then.
There's path,
Yeah,
but it's really, yeah. Regret. Or walk or whatever. Trail, yeah.
The expansion of sewer and water is a pipe dream. And it's beyond our control.
Where are you reading that?
The first paragraph under non-regulatory. Next to last sentence. Most obvious way to,
Yeah.
well, that's a
it's
fair
just-
statement.
It's
though.
a fair statement,
Yeah.
it's not happening, it's a fair statement.
Right,
okay,
I don't mind it being in there just because it's a true statement, but yeah, it's not just not happening.
all right, and how about the next paragraph, guys? I read some of this stuff and it sounds very sweet and nice and.
Yeah.
And so forth,
Where you gonna put green space?
green spaces and
Not downtown.
I thought that, isn't this considered a green space here?
Could be part of it,
Probably.
a little bit.
Like here at the town office?
Well, technically, village doesn't go this far, does it, Mark?
Yes, it goes right to, where, Highland Ave. So this is village. And this would be the only green space, but it's actually not the town, it's school. But
It's gonna be new football fields, shortly.
Sure.
Right.
I mean, you guess, you know, green spaces would be, you get
Plant some grass in the median.
no cross point.
Right by the light down.
I think these are,
We have the little.
I'm just thinking,
Just,
Jessica, there's not a lot of
Phone in
land available to get too creative that I can think about.
I mean, you have the Pisgah Trail and all of that, I mean, that's green space, it's probably more than most towns. Take that hill and all the trails and. And that's a lot of. green
So-
space.
would you be okay with revitalizing Winthrop's downtown? Take out. By improving sidewalks, or just revitalize Winthrop's downtown by improving sidewalks, is there anything else that?
The
Would fit?
sidewalks would be a big deal. Legal conforming side,
ADA
crosswalks.
compliant, if, yeah. Oh, crosswalks?
You're thinking of the whole Main Street strip development stuff, that's
The problem with Main Street, no, no, the situation with Main Street is actually a state road. maintained by
Yes,
the
I
town.
saw that.
So,
Oh, that's still a state road?
maintained by the town.
Oh, it's the old 202.
Wait, isn't there a park down by that? There's like a stream, like, right. Like down one of those side roads.
well, there's people's backyards.
No, no, somebody
No,
told me it was like a park, I thought. Somebody mentioned it.
On the lake?
No, it's probably the Mill Street, right?
Yeah.
Is what you're thinking
Yeah, there's a public park.
Talking about North Cross Point.
On
No,
Mill-
Cross Point's gonna leave, that's.
No.
No?
Well, you know, along Green Street,
Well, yeah, that's what I'm wondering.
but that literally is backyards for the properties in Green Street.
Huh.
That comes to my mind,
That was an ongoing.
same thing, yeah.
Okay,
It's not a bad thing, I just don't know how.
no, I understand what you're
Achievable
saying.
it
It's, yeah, it's limited
Well,
and,
Now, something like that would really be nice if there was a connection like from Main Street down Mill Stream down to the lake, but.
It was thought, but you'd have to, I mean, was it eminent domain?
A lot of, yeah.
You'd have to take you to property and.
Actually,
They wouldn't be happy.
And then the springy floating docks.
Yeah,
Well, yeah, that's. Well, that's what a lot of public space is. It's flooded anyways.
Yeah.
It's in the flood zone.
Put it in the floodplain.
Yeah.
Well, it's built there anyway.
All right.
All right, so I'll rework that. What about the next paragraph, how the town collaborates with several organizations?
Preventing spread.
mm,
Natural. Well, this group right here is the biggest protector of the natural resources next to the,
conservation session.
yeah. If you go to any plan board meeting where there's work in the shoreline zone, it's the priority.
See, that's why you need to keep them to it.
No, they do it. They do a great job. They know what they're doing. I know what I gotta do after they're done, but I know what they're doing.
We're also keeping in mind, not this document, but it seems of late that the only projects that we see outside of people wanting to adjust their residences, expanding if they're in shoreland or playing with their decks or what, mind you, is someone who's all excited to put in solar.
Hmm.
And if we knock them down on solar, then they'll want to be doing the little rental building things. It's like, those are the two hot spots.
Everywhere. We're seeing that all over.
Okay, that doesn't surprise
So I cover Skowhegan Planning Board when Joel is away, and I can't tell you, and that's predominantly what I've sat through, and I haven't covered it a lot, but there's been so many of those types of applications. It's crazy. You're talking about self-storage, right?
me. Yes. of
Yeah,
course.
And they fill them as fast as they build them.
yeah. So the non-regulatory measures seems okay if I adjust some of that?
Sure.
Agriculture and open space. Basically saying that the town has parcels, well, not the town, but there are parcels in town enrolled in open space, farmland, and tree growth tax laws. The town wants to preserve open space where feasible, partnering with the Kennebec Land Trust, Maine Farmland Trust, Havasu Watershed Districts, etc.
Although I don't know, the department, as much Mark as we are the beneficiary of the other organizations, realistic. But no, that's fine.
Yeah, GLT doesn't have anything in Winthrop other than office.
KLT?
Kennebec Land Trust.
Yeah, they have a ton of property.
They do?
Mount Pisgah?
Mount Pisgah,
Oh, Mount Pisgah, of course.
but there's others, isn't?
Yeah, they have other
Isn't
land, they have properties.
I
That's right.
think, I thought they had some islands in Havasu.
Yeah, they do. You're right.
Oh, yeah, there we go. I learned
I'll
something.
do you someday.
All right.
We'll go for a flute.
Okay, go ahead. We'll do that.
Winthrop's rural urban
Yeah.
balance.
Pisgah, I was thinking a town had that, but that was, you know.
Talking about the census designated place, which. Can't be right.
What are you reading in?
This first sentence, second sentence, the census designated place only counts, it counts for 18% of the town's land base, but houses nearly 44% of the population. So that kind of shows that most of the population is centered around the downtown area, with fewer in the rural area.
Except for this time of year, right, guys?
Yeah.
Now, I don't. Kind of a question, I guess. After thinking back when they were talking about population of Winthrop for number of households and the average number of. Well, I guess you take the population, divide by the number of households, gives you population per household. But in Winthrop, there's number of homes that are basically year-round homes, except they're not. Because
They're just used seasonally.
they're maybe snowbirds, maybe whatever.
Snowbirds.
The census accounts for that.
Okay,
Is that what you're asking? Like,
yeah,
if
I wasn't sure how that was.
Yeah,
how
so
that-
that's,
Because
that-
with all the lakes and all the shore frontage, we have quite a good proportion of that.
yeah, and a lot of them are in houses that are year-round houses, but they don't use them as.
Right,
Yeah, I know, what you're yeah,
and they may well be Florida residents
right,
because,
yeah, the census accounts for that.
okay,
And that's all in the demographics and housing chapters.
okay, that's what I was wondering, whether that's actually factored in or not.
It is, yeah. Have you guys had a chance to read the demographics chapter?
I have not.
It's online.
No, I
Who's the first one put up?
Yeah, it goes into all of that stuff that you're just
Okay.
asking. I think he put something else up too. I can't remember what it was. But anyways, the floodplain management ordinance. So some of this, you're probably wondering why it's in here, like the floodplain management ordinance one. That's a requirement of the state to answer this question, if the town has that. So that's why that's there.
They do, and they have a floodplain administrator.
Winthrop is a floodplain administrator? Oh,
All towns must.
Mark isn't a program, he needs more.
Yeah,
so then projections, this kind of covers what you were just talking about, Ed, with, household size, the current population, and the projections, the Katie Cox projection, as well as the state economist's projection.
right,
Basically, the projection, I think, David, you mentioned it earlier, is flatline. There's not much change anticipated. But that doesn't mean that new houses won't be built.
They are still being built.
Yes.
Two on my desk.
But there's also a lot of houses that are occupied by people that no longer live. A house gets sold, a lot of those lakefront homes are bought by somebody out of state, and where that was somebody's residence is now somebody's camp. And so the population goes down, but the number of houses goes up. So,
right.
That's a huge problem in Jackman.
yeah.
That's
Oh, yeah.
like a huge limiting factor, is that rich people from out of state own houses that are four-season homes. And then you have like people who are working in or around Jackman trying to buy a house up there, and there's just no houses.
Are you serious?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Wow. Wouldn't have thought that.
Yeah, I know, yeah, that's kind of a unique, yeah,
Well, yeah, and Chris. The town services still have to cover those houses, well, because they're also getting tax revenue, so,
right.
but, you know, when you look at kind of the population. The services really,
It's a, yeah,
services requirement is really greater than population would suggest in many cases.
yeah,
More so in Jackman than apparently even than here.
well, I think there's a lot of contributing factors there too. Hopefully you guys are reading. Everybody get. through with it?
I don't understand the term. You define affordable
Yeah.
housing.
Yes.
It's used a lot, but it doesn't,
Oh, in here.
no, anywhere, like, we hear, we need more affordable housing, but what is affordable housing?
That's
I'm
the-
getting-
that's the
I'm
age-old
dead serious.
question.
What is what do they mean by?
I'll show you exactly how they define it.
Housing that's affordable for,
It goes by. A house is considered affordable if a household whose income is at or below 80% of the area median income, AMI, can live there without spending more than 28% of their income on housing costs, including heat, electricity, insurance, and others. The state is specifically related to those who own their homes. For rentals to be considered affordable at 80% of the AMI, the household should be able to live there without spending 30% of their income on housing expenses. For example, in Kennebuck County, 80% of the AMI by family size is, for one, it's 42,250. And so on and so forth. I got this from the main housing website.
just,
I didn't mean to like dumb it down too much.
no, I'm glad you, but it's still, there's. To obtain affordable housing is just an irrational, it's a very relevant request.
It is relative,
Like,
As it's defined there, it's all based on the income,
right?
right? You know,
But
it's
I
the
think you're
median
talking
income.
about for the town to encourage affordable housing, is that what you mean?
Yep.
anywhere, because you hear it all the time, it's like, we gotta find more affordable housing. Well,
And
you
that's
can't,
all the extra.
you can't,
You're-
like,
The state is
I know.
forcing it at this point, and it's,
I have a certain employee in this town whose place of residence is she's not being allowed to stay there, so she's looking for a rent. And there's nothing out there, like her income to debt ratio for rent alone is, it's not affordable.
Well, I would
It's
say
not
in the
affordable.
entire Kennebec County right now,
And
there
anywhere,
is no affordable housing.
There is
Period.
none.
Unless it's state subsidized, there is no affordable housing, and you have to qualify for state subsidized housing.
right,
So you have to make below a certain income in order to qualify. Because I've got people coming in, I got new hires all the time.
Yeah.
And they cannot find an apartment. I mean, even a shack, even just a one bedroom or even a bedroom that's part of a boarding house. It's like $1,200 and you go paying $35,000 a year. That's not even close. You look at the maps you just presented, that's not even close. Like, there's no way they can afford that place.
well, I mean, I'm a prime example, my house payment doubled because of interest rates, and I had to refinance.
Yeah.
Divorce reason, and my girlfriend lives with me, but if she didn't live with me, it's not affordable.
You could, yeah.
It's not affordable for me at that point.
Be nice
But-
to her.
Yeah, I told her that. I said,
Yeah.
for rent, but she,
You're just
amazing,
here
but
for
it's-
your income? No, that's.
no, it's just that I couldn't afford to live there.
Without her.
I mean,
So to me, that's what I'm like, give me a definition of affordable housing, because what are you trying to tell anybody out there?
Right,
When you say, well, this little income to debt ratio.
well, no,
means-
no, look at, but do the math, if it's 42,000 and it's say up to 30%, that says it's 12 grand or 1,000 a month, right? There ain't 1,000 a month
Place
housing.
So there is zero
That's what's
available.
Exactly, that's what I mean, that's
At any
At
price.
any, yeah.
Yeah.
It's
But
really.
how do you get a builder to build
Can't, there's
Yeah.
no.
affordable housing? They
They
can't
can't.
afford to build
They can't.
affordable housing.
Right,
no,
right. The
It's
only
not
thing you
so-
can, you have to cross the line to subsidize housing,
That's
which
right.
Well,
means that
it's
there's
so
some
the-
program paying for part of
it's
it.
a regional
still won't
issue,
come up.
this can't
Absolutely,
be
it's not.
addressed, this can't be addressed individually on the town level. And I
Anywhere
like
in
the
the
steps
state.
that Winthrop was taking with Reedfield, Fayette, was it, Wayne, I can't remember who else was involved. There was a push for like a regional affordable housing committee or something, I'm not sure. But Yeah, it needs to be addressed regionally badly.
It needs to be rated.
Anybody that has.
Try to figure out.
They're not gonna be able to afford their own housing.
Right,
They offer affordable housing.
right,
That's right.
yeah.
Right.
So
Anyways,
Yeah.
is,
Just got that. I just,
is everybody okay with the projections? And
Yeah, I thought
analysis?
the last paragraph there, on page 15 was a little bit kind of redundant. I mean, I don't know if that's really needed, but maybe that's just me. Some of the stuff is applied in the earlier part of the section.
Earlier part of the projection section?
Yes, yes.
Okay. I'll go
So
through that.
I just thought, I mean, they're giving some examples, I get that, but I don't know. I just didn't think it was needed.
that last statement to me is just totally outdated and
It's what?
it's outdated, it's totally inaccurate.
Okay,
Because most of the land being used in Winthrop is solar farms
so
in the rural.
I
zone.
think I need to double check the state requirements. I think it's looking for something along these lines. I'll read that again and see if I can make this, I don't know, better.
No, I was just looking, because this is construction of new houses and consume more land
It's
development.
hypothetical
Well,
though,
that's what I mean.
but that's one of the things that it asks.
But they want you to say it, right?
Yeah, so I have this checklist
Oh, no, I don't
and I gotta answer like,
Oh, God, yeah.
it's ridiculous.
So is this, so I think this is where I'm getting a little mixed up, because some of this we're talking about is the old comprehensive plan, and we're looking at. what
No, this
they-
is the entire new,
But it can be civil,
it could be.
you know, especially the part that talks about where the town is at, because the town today versus 2010 is not substantially that different. I don't think. Well, we get a Dunkin' Donuts, you know, yay.
So this is
We
the
got
projection
Hannaford
for the
over into
future.
market, right?
It,
was about
this
10
is an
years ago.
example
But we lost
of like,
Liberty.
Right.
for example, if
Right,
20 new
right. No, I-
houses
yeah.
were built.
I
Yeah,
understand
Walgreens.
that ratio, I totally get it, but I think the problem is we're gonna. There's just so much of it is
Still have nice-
consumed by solar farms, right? 8 of them.
There's 8 of them?
Well, there's eight proposed.
There's
So-
3 solid underway.
It wants me to estimate the minimum amount of land needed to accommodate projected residential, institutional, commercial, or industrial development at least 10 years into the future. There is no real projection for really any of those things. So I think I threw this in there to be like, look, if there's 20 new houses built
No,
in
that
this
makes sense,
area,
and the lot size and all that, I totally get that.
I want to make sure that I check all the stupid little boxes, so this doesn't get kicked back
Right.
and.
Yeah.
But I'm sure there is redundancy, so I will go through and just see if I can like streamline it. Other than that, how did this section seem?
The accurate on aging population. Growth. You know, the houses that are existing are gonna change in ownership and
Yeah. it's more like-
potentially not increase population, but. I mean, I would like to see more growth, I think it's just more houses built, I don't know how that ADU law is gonna affect that.
Yeah, that'll be interesting.
I'm
Then
not-
you'll have your new planner and it will be your problem.
And that's, hopefully, fingers crossed. I mean, no, I wanna be involved, because I wanna understand it, but, you know, my signups right now are for cannabis. I'm trying to figure out that one. That ever changing pendulum, but
Yeah, that's
Well-
annoying, though. That changes constantly.
every day it seems like, I don't
Yeah.
even know what.
It's crazy. It's impossible to get a handle on that.
So I just signed up for a class in September. To see what I already forgot that I knew, what I didn't know that's changed. It is definitely changing.
What can the town do to encourage this specific type of development, residential development?
Continue to develop with the subdivision, I would encourage certain types of,
The town doesn't,
I don't know.
town doesn't
You can't really,
do the development. You just
No.
wait till somebody comes in.
you'd have to develop, for that, you'd need like a public-private partnership. And I don't know that that's ideal for the town to enter into. Very little.
Well, it says here. In the analysis, it says, this may mean encouraging the construction of specific types of homes.
But there's not much, I mean, there's not, yeah, there isn't a lot of ways to encourage it.
Usually, you're talking about a bigger community and they've got
Right.
the infamous tip. So,
You guys have it,
We have one,
yeah,
it's the mill.
was that, yeah,
so what you do is basically you forgive, usually they're structured, so you forgive about half of the real estate tax. For 10 years, 20 years, up for a brand new, I think you can vary it. For a brand new project. So that's one way.
Fits within a certain.
Yeah, in most towns, or cities, whatever. Almost always designate a certain area for a tip to apply. It doesn't, it isn't border to border.
Yeah.
But as far as having tools. Infrastructure, I suppose, but usually they do it with a tip and then. That's the way that.
a
it
town,
comes
you're
from.
right, a town this size, there's not.
I think they did one for Progressive, which would have grandfather by now.
I don't know if it, I don't know, there's never been a talk about it, so.
I thought they did, but I mean, that's pretty old now, so.
Even things like expanding utilities.
There's no,
I mean, that's residential, that's how you do it, I mean, that's what we were
But
talking
even,
about.
even with that, even with existing utilities, it's not that much more cost effective to hook into an existing utility than to have your private. Right now, the way things cost, by the time you pay to
Yeah.
open the road and close the road and tie all your stuff in, you're pretty close, and now you're dependent on, a lot of mainers don't like. They want their own well there.
Yeah, I know, but I know like 30 years ago, like towns used to go, it's like, okay, once you build a subdevelopment. And once that's 60% occupied, that will make that a town road, we'll pay for the water hookups, we'll pay for, that was sort of like an incentive program to build a subdivision in that town. Because you go, we're gonna get the utilities, we don't have to pay up front. They're gonna bring the utilities to this area,
I could see.
so. But that you have to have kind of designated areas, and we don't.
Yeah.
We're not driving the utilities and they don't wanna grow, so that's kind of a challenge for us.
What you do is you get people with very, very nice velvet shoes that know how to dance. And they talk about how great the town is, they talk about the lakes, the recreation, the school system is. There isn't any real direct program that very many towns have.
Yeah, no, I mean, the school system's huge. I can't name how many people they actually look, they got school age kids, they're looking at those numbers that get published on the state. And what the state score, the school, the scores, the school scores, the teacher to kid ratio, those kind of things they're looking at. They're saying, do I want my kid in the school system?
We have excess capacity, pure and simple, at the moment.
Yeah.
So, did I go through this too quickly with you guys? Do you have any questions or?
I have a question. It says in here, the aging population is important consideration, and it goes on, so the younger and the older, and that there's not, we need to consider it in every
Which page are
aspect of the
you-
future. I'm sorry, 15
Oh, okay.
3, 4, 5th paragraph,
Okay,
okay? Rather than saying it's happening in the future, it's happening now. I mean, it's not a future problem, it's a present problem, I do believe.
yeah, you're
Yeah,
right.
definitely.
Consideration for every aspect of the future. savvy today, it's just. I mean, do we know what we need in town? We know what we need for healthy, we know what we need for handicap, do we know, we don't know what we need, do we? How many
No.
houses for families do we need, we know? Well, then, how do you stand if you don't know what you need?
But the town can't plan per se. We're not gonna be in the business of building
Well, I'm
residences.
just saying, there's gotta be somebody who has an idea of what maybe needed here.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you look at the demographic, you look at Kennebec County, you could definitely do that type of
Yeah.
math pretty easy. You know, how many facilities are available, how many beds are available, how many assisted livings, they have all the different class. Agings, type of systems, where are those located?
But maybe town.
What are their
manager probably
capacities?
has a-
They have access to
you know,
that type of
They
thing,
know.
but, it's really for the developers to go. Well, the planner can go talk to those developers and say, this is what you need to be building in this area, because
Yeah.
it's needed in Kennebec
I'm
County.
thinking that's how you
And
draw.
how do we get them to build here versus
Right,
building in
right,
a place, one of the surrounding towns that maybe has lower taxes because they don't have a school system and things like that. So they go, well, that's,
Kind of what I'm saying.
it's always a challenge. How do you balance that? for
It's
services for-
probably developer driven though, mostly,
Yeah.
which makes it harder. But it can pop up now and again, and we may eventually come up with a way where Barry Kroll can actually implement his little community behind,
I don't
it.
I'll tell you what, Granite Hill Estates has a waiting list,
know. Really?
and you know what they charge? It's ridiculous.
Oh, mhm.
400 to 450 per unit, you have to buy it. And then you're paying $2,000 a month. Yeah, I just got the number sheet.
They can do it.
Yeah, it's a
Well,
lot.
no. And then, when your loved mom or dad decides to move on, you're forced to sell it back to Granite Hill.
Yeah,
And it's,
a 10 or 20% loss depending on which month. you pay.
I was gonna say 80%.
It's either 80 or 90, depending on which month we plan.
Like assisted living?
Is it senior living or what?
Yeah, I mean, they have a lodge connected to Main General, which has
Yeah.
apartments in it, and then they have a number of standalone units, and then they have a number of paired units. The paired units basically have garages that touch all one floor living, all within this community.
Oh, wow.
They own them all, they sell them all, they rent them, they basically, you have to join this plan.
Yeah,
We can
And
buy
honestly,
this.
yeah, you have to buy anything that's not in the lodge, you buy it, and it's between $350,000 and $450,000, depending on what size you buy.
wow,
And then monthly, it's 1,500 to 2,000, depending on, again, the size.
that's quite a racket.
And then you have to sell it back to them at their given price, and they're only gonna pay 80 or 90%, depending on which monthly plan you
Seems
pay.
illegal.
But
They own
it's like
So
it's like a condo kind of.
Yeah, it's a contract, you don't technically
You just
own
sell
it,
it.
that's the thing.
Yeah,
is
that's-
You're
you rent
basically, it's like a down payment you make on a rental car, yeah,
That you die before you pay for it.
well, but
So-
you'll get that back, you'll get part of it back.
If, after we leave tonight, if anybody decides to reread this and come up with other suggestions, just, you can follow them.
They have your email.
Oh, that
They
works.
forwarded that.
Oh, all right, yeah,
From
just,
you,
just
so-
reach out to me.
So if
and-
not, they can back.
But everybody's, with the edits that we talked about, everybody's pretty much good with this. Okay. I'll work on that and I'll get it back out to you. We have a deadline coming up with this LD 2003 grant application, so I can't promise you it will be this week that I'll get back to you, but probably early next week, maybe next week, so
Well, what's your deadline for getting this done?
the comp plan as a whole
Well, at least the piece we're looking at.
this year.
Yeah.
I'm hoping next week sometime.
Okay.
And then we still have the future land use, which will probably be more involved in this.
Oh, okay, so we'll be back to
You'll
another
get to see me
section.
again.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay. I
So
wasn't
two-
exactly sure how to
yeah.
phrase the question.
2 weeks, we do have a case
I'm not ready to go over that quite yet. I'll touch base with you and Anthony. We'll figure out a time that works for like you and I and
Okay.
the
So
board.
it could be a whole different section then.
Yeah, it'll be the future one, like the ideas that you guys were all talking about. And there's a table that goes with it. I'll make sure that you get that more in advance so you can spend more time going through it and,
We're slow readers.
well, it's a lot and it's dense. I get it.
Yeah. So that'd be good.
All right. Good. Thank you all. I appreciate
Yeah.
all your help, and the insight.
We're just glad that we're not stuck with this project personally.
Yeah, I think
Anything else? We'll end the meeting. if
You guys
we
have been great, though.
Yes,
Yeah, when's our next meeting? Can somebody please tell me?
23rd.
23rd?
Yeah, but that one's on the website.
That's an
I'm
event.
just
'cause that's
making
Lee
sure.
Moses, so-
That'd be good. I'll tell Anthony it'd be best to have all of our gatherings there. As opposed to. under
I'll just
planning.
do it. I'll just do it. I'll just have Deb do an event. Not be good. Just put the agenda on both sides.
Which I think you always did, but
I didn't always, because I honestly didn't always have access to the planning board page on the town website, but I didn't know. And that'll be handed over to Deb.
All right. Thank you all very much.
it's not just.
Have a good night.
I make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
are we having a meeting tonight?
Not really.
I got it.
Could I